Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It is the start of a long weekend. Ferries are swamped today. We'll hear how BC Ferries plans to manage. And we're taking your camping tips and stories. What are your best camping hacks? Join us for that. And in 20 minutes, we'll head to Sproat Lake, the winner of CBC's search for BC's best lake. Justin McElroy will join us lakeside, and we'll hear about the Indigenous history of the area with the CBC's Wamish Hamilton. At 12:30, Brian Minter is back, and he's taking your gardening questions. I'm Michelle Eliot. This is BC Today. And thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on CBC Vancouver's YouTube page. As I mentioned, we do have Brian Minter joining us at 12:30. You can email us photos of your garden or of the plant that you are asking Brian about right now. Send your photo to bctoday@cbc.ca. And again, Brian will join us coming up in about 23 minutes from now. Right now, BC Ferries is gearing up for a busy, long weekend. More than 500,000 passengers are expected over the next 3 days. And it comes after a series of problems this summer. Some good news for you right now. No significant delays or problems this hour. It looks like Tsawwassen to Southern Gulf Islands is quite busy, though, and full until tomorrow morning. For the latest updates, you can head over to the BC Ferries website for the current conditions or use the BC Ferries app. You can check their Twitter X account as well. And we'll keep you updated throughout the day here on CBC too. And BC Ferries President and CEO Nicholas Jimenez says the issues earlier this summer should not impact services this weekend. He spoke this morning with Gloria Makarenko on the Early Edition.
I mean, we've done a lot of planning, not just for this weekend, but over the course of the summer. So we obviously have every ship in service. We've done even some anticipatory work on the coastal celebration in the event that there's further failures on those O-ring seals on the other propellers. We've stood up improvements to our technology back end. So we've got more storage and capacity in our data centers. We've got a waiting room feature set up in case there's a surge of demand in some of our customer-facing applications. So we won't see pressure on the website having it go down. We've fortified staffing levels and reserve lists. We've got parking management and traffic control improvements in place at our busier terminals. So a lot, and there's many more, but there's a lot of things that we're doing iteratively to kind of constantly learn and improve. We're seeing the demand on our service like we've never seen it before. I mean, this system right now is working beyond peak capacity. It is record levels of travel literally all the time, and that's something we're going to have to get used to. The reality is we actually need to look. In as much as it's a short-term fix, and I've talked about this before, I've been very honest in the very early days of my tenure here, this company's got some problems that we have to address, but they're not overnight fixes. These are systemic issues that we're going to have to sort of patiently but diligently resolve. Things like replacing our aging fleet. We've got a number of vessels that we put into service in the 60s and the 70s. So we've got plans in place. We're designing new ships and putting business cases together, but that's not the kind of thing that you see in a month or 3 months. That's work that's going to happen over time. And the same thing with crewing. We've got to fundamentally relook at how we crew and staff this business. And again, that's something that will happen. Not in a month, not in a week, but over a year or two.
That's Nicholas Jimenez, the CEO of BC Ferries, giving the big picture as to how the company is being run to deal with that demand. And this is BC Today here on CBC. We are asking you whether you're traveling by ferry today. Perhaps you're sitting at the Horseshoe Bay Terminal right now or at Tsawwassen. Welcome to you. Thanks so much for joining us. We're here to keep you company this hour. Or perhaps you're driving around British Columbia. This is a big travel weekend for sure. And people are likely to head to a campground this weekend. So we're asking you on the open line for your camping stories, your camping tips and hacks, whether you're a veteran camper or you're new to camping looking for some tips and tricks. We would love to hear from you. If you are heading out camping right now, tell us where you're going, what are your plans, and what are you bringing with you? You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950. 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. You can email us too, perhaps your best camping photos, bctoday@cbc.ca. And joining me to take your calls is Sam Waddington. He's the owner of Mount Waddington Outdoors in Chilliwack. He's an outdoors enthusiast. Hello, Sam.
Hey, great to be with you today.
Good to speak with you. I'm quite surprised. It looks like you're at home. I was thinking perhaps you'd already be out in the wilderness.
I know it needs to happen. I'm heading out tomorrow. Hopefully, we're getting into some alpine climbing. So yeah, I'll be out with the rest of the province in good time here. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that really is. It's sort of the definition of the BC day long weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the best way to celebrate the beautiful place that we live is to be in its most magical places, I think. So yeah, no matter where you are in the province, there's always a great spot to be close by.
Absolutely. My best memory is being out on a lake in a canoe, just so peaceful. For yourself, what are your most memorable camping trips in BC?
Yeah, I mean it's so hard to pin down, right? There's fabulous places all over our province, but mine are the ones that kind of surprised me. You know, places that I went into either with less information or hadn't been to before, and they kind of just stand out because of their unique nature. So, spending time in some of the central British Columbia parks and into the north, like Tweedsmuir and Tulameen, those are probably some of my favorite areas to explore and to spend time. But yeah, I've been trying to force myself out of my routines and to get out and be in parks or be in wilderness corridors that I haven't been in before, and I'm pleasantly surprised, and I've yet to be disappointed by anywhere that I've been. There's always a creek, or there's always an old growth stand,
Right.
or something fabulous to surprise you for sure.
Have you done, do you prefer going down those logging roads to get to really obscure, out of the way places?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of my preference. I find that if you just one step away from the main areas, you can find some fantastic terrain, and that's even near our busy urban centers, right? So near the Okanagan or near Metro Vancouver, there are a lot of places that are just one step removed. So
Ah,
I'm always encouraging people get out past just your BC Parks sites. Those are obviously there for a reason. They're beautiful, but those forestry recreation sites and those hiking trails that are kind of one step removed. So for us, that's kind of the go-to. But yeah, or take a plunge and jump into BC's true wilderness and head up north or into the Coast Range or wherever it is that intrigues you. And I guarantee you'll find some special spots out there that don't see very many boots on the ground. That's for sure.
well, I know that people are loath to share their special spots on the radio, so we're
Yeah,
not going to ask
yeah,
you about that, but we would love to hear about your
yeah.
camping stories, your best experiences, and the best lessons that
Mm,
you've learned. Maybe you want to share your camping
absolutely.
fails and share them with us too. Love to hear from you on the open line, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, star or pound 690 on your cell phone. If you are perhaps in your car, in a ferry lineup waiting right now, I'd love to hear where you're headed if you're camping, and tell us what you are bringing with you. What are your must-haves for going camping in BC? And Sam Waddington is my guest, owner of Mount Waddington Outdoors in Chilliwack. Let's perhaps get down to the basics. You know, if you are a beginner camper, which there are so many of in our province, especially since the pandemic, what are the things that they should know, bring with them, the essentials, and what should they do when they get to the site?
Yeah, so it's a great point. You know, BC has seen an absolute surge in backcountry use, and I love that. I love seeing people who have never stepped into our wild places. But there are some things to think about if you didn't grow up potentially, with a family that taught you all the nuances of camping and
Yeah.
outdoor recreation. There's a lot to know. So the fundamentals are pretty simple, which is research where you go so that you have some idea of your surroundings, where the rivers are, where your campsite is in relation to major roads. All these things are important. Um, and telling somebody where you're going, especially if you're going to be out of cell service, which a lot of our sites are out of cell service. So keeping that in mind because you may not be able to be in contact, and that just makes sure that your trip goes off smoothly. You've got the things you need to be safe from wildlife. So keeping your food either in your vehicle if you're at a drive-to campsite, or strung up in a tree. If you're in a backcountry site, just to limit wildlife. And it's not always that you're going to have a bear in camp. You may just habituate, rodents and raccoons to your area, which the next camper will have to deal with, right? So it's those backcountry etiquette things that are really important. And then making sure that you watch your step, move slowly. These are wild places, and the terrain is very real in British Columbia in most places. And so we want to keep our search and rescue volunteer teams
They have been
at
busy
home
already.
on the long weekend. They have been, I have a little bit of an insight into Chilliwack Search and Rescue, and they had their busiest month on record, 24 calls in 31 days.
Wow.
And they're happy to respond when they need to, but nobody wants to see that call volume. Those are 24 very bad days for individuals and their families. So you need to do your part as a recreationalist, right? And just plan accordingly, bring your own first aid kits, have your own communication devices. And try to head those things off at the pass.
Really good advice. What are some essentials for a first aid kit to take camping?
So like any tool, we always say a tool is only useful if you know how to use it. So I would say your first aid kit should reflect your ability to respond. But in general, we talk about the 10 essentials for backpacking and for hiking. And so you can search that online. It's really easy to do, but it covers the basics of having a light, having some way to start a fire. We'll get into fires later. You don't want to start big fires.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Maybe if you need to be warm, less important in the middle of summer. But sun protection, you're going to have a little bit of first aid. You're going to have a knife just to be able to, open a package or cut a small piece of rope, these types of things. So Google the 10 essentials, and that'll be a really great place to start to know that you should have those things in your backpack. And it's just a reminder, right? Adequate food and water for the day, some sun protection, some bug protection. These things go a very long way in just mitigating most of those small challenges that arise.
I'm on the North Shore Rescue website, and yes, a light for the 10 essentials, a signaling device, warm clothes, a pocket knife, shelter, water, and food, of course. And Sam, I'm going to give out the numbers again, 1-800-825-5950. Would love to hear from you about your camping stories, your camping tips and tricks. Our local number in Metro Vancouver is 604-669-3733. Now, you talked about people who didn't grow up with the family that was fond of camping. That's my case. I'm an immigrant. I moved here when I was 12, and so I took up camping later on. I tend toward the campgrounds, provincial campgrounds that are busy, just because they're in my comfort zone for sure. But what about camping etiquette? Because things get busy, you're pretty much shoulder to shoulder, tent to tent with your neighbor. Basic camping etiquette. I know we had an issue with kids playing a little too early in the morning. And so very kindly, a neighbor said, could you, people are still sleeping. So, what hours are best? What about how loud your music should be? What's the best camping etiquette? And if people have their pet peeves, you can give us a call too.
Yeah. And it's, I think something to keep in mind is that, especially if you haven't immersed yourself in wilderness, and you can find that even at a busy BC Park campsite.
Right.
I would just encourage people to embrace it and embrace the quiet, embrace the smells and the feel of that fresh mountain air and these types of things. It is truly it's life-giving. It's a whole program. Your therapist bill will go down, you'll need less of that, but it's
nature therapy.
Exactly, right? That, and so many cultures talk about this, but it's, the Japanese call it forest bathing. Our most Indigenous cultures in Canada have this steeped history of spending time in wilderness places, not doing anything specifically, just being in place, right? And experiencing everything that comes from in these quiet, mossy, dripping zones that are really, really neat. So I would encourage you to embrace that. So when you're in a park, keep your music down. Try to keep the partying to a minimum.
This may be hitting close to home for me. I did hear a lot of music
right. We've all been. Anyone who's been camping has been next to somebody who's a little too loud, or the the travel trailer that's running a generator late, or these types of things. And so, I love hearing crackly conversations across a campground as you wander through. That's fantastic.
Yes.
Do your thing, and quiet music is fine. But BC Parks has a really great resource website as well that just talks about some of these etiquette things and things to think about. And it's managing your garbage, right? You're outside.
Yes.
No one's going to clean up after you. But yeah, keeping that music down, kind of shutting it down at about 10 a.m. and kind of things don't really get kicked off in a campground till 8 a.m. We're all on vacation. It's nice to just relax. So
Absolutely.
those are the basics. And then, and the rest is really just leaning into the experience of being there. So go for those walks, and get out on the trails.
Let's take a call from Ken, who just left Prince George this morning. Where are you off to, Ken?
We're heading to Lucier Hot Springs and Ram Creek Hot Springs in the East Kootenays.
Fabulous, Ken. That sounds great.
And so are you on the highway right now?
Yep, I have my spouse with me, and we're driving on a hands-free device, so it's safe to talk to you.
Yes, good. Okay, so tell us about your plans.
Well, I've been to both. Well, I've been to probably 13 hot springs in BC, and we're heading to these two. My spouse has never been to them. They're both sort of undeveloped. You don't have to pay money to go to them, and it's quite easy access. And like Lucier is right on the edge of a river, and the last time I was there, I think there was 5 separate pools. It's just a beautiful setting. Ram Creek is in a subalpine ravine, and the last time I was there, I saw a grizzly bear walk by. It's just a beautiful setting in the mountains.
What's your best camping tip then, Ken?
Go prepared. We're prepared, but we weren't able to actually book a tent site, so we may have to fall back on some forest rent sites. There's many parks in the area there,
right?
So, just go prepared. We're ready for basically anything.
Well, that's wonderful. And go ahead.
Well, we've got. We're tenting. We didn't bring our motorhome because it's a long trip, so we're taking our car. But we're prepared for any kind of weather. We've got all the food we need, all the water we need.
There you go.
All the light sources we need. And we're really looking forward to some adventures.
Have a great time, Ken. And preparation is key, as we've just heard too. So you have a wonderful time over in the East Kootenays. And we do have to remind people as he's traveling to the southeast of the province that campfires are prohibited in all regions of BC right now, as of course more than 350 wildfires continue to burn. And Sam, as we wrap up here, I have just about a minute with you. We're going to head to Sproat Lake very soon. How has camping changed with increasing wildfires, and what should people know?
Yeah. So I mentioned being aware of your surroundings. That's part of it, because you may not start a wildfire, but you want to be aware. So, folks like Ken out on the road, you're our eyes and ears in the province. So keep an eye out, because lightning strikes and natural starts and other people starting fires. So we all have a responsibility. Obviously, no fires. Very obvious. Be very careful with anything that might ignite, because we don't need any more.
No.
But having those essentials with you, as Ken was saying, right? They've got their water, they've got their stuff. They can handle being in the province, but I would just say be flexible, right? So maybe there is a fire that comes up in the zone you were heading to. Yeah. Being willing to drive off to a different spot, check out a forestry rec site. And if you don't yet have a reservation, that's not a showstopper. There are places to camp all over the province that are first come, first serve. And I'm sure you can find a spot still if you want to get out in the backcountry this weekend and you don't currently have a reso.
Sounds like Ken is ready for that. Sam, you have a wonderful time heading out tomorrow.
Yep. Safe travels, everyone. Have a great time in the backcountry. Happy long weekend.
Absolutely. Safe travels to you as well. Sam Waddington, owner of Mount Waddington Outdoors in Chilliwack. 25 minutes now past noon, past 1 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone. And we are going to head to the winner of BC's Best Lake. There were 48 lakes vying for the title, 2 weeks of voting. More than 100,000 votes later, we have a winner. Sproat Lake near Port Alberni on Vancouver Island is BC's Best Lake, thanks to your votes. And our poll master, bracket master, Justin McElroy joins us now with pretty much one of the best views in the province. Justin, can you just describe for us? I can see the blue, just all blue behind you there, but describe what it looks like.
There's a lot of blue, there's a lot of green forest surrounding Sproat as well. It's a lake with 4 arms that extend out into the distance, so you can get that distance from people and enjoy your little private campsite or little area of water right next to Port Alberni, about a 10-minute drive in the Alberta-Clayoquot Regional District. And it was people throughout the entire valley that showed up in numbers with tons of votes to win the scientific objective descriptor of Best Lake in British Columbia.
If I can just describe what you look like as well. I think you're probably one of the, if people are sightseeing, you're a sight to behold too. You're wearing a CBC Burst t-shirt with, I think that looks like a CBC Vancouver hat and some pretty flashy sunglasses there. So I bet people have been coming up to you, have they?
You know, we've been here since yesterday, and plenty of folks have been saying we voted in the competition, we love our lake, we want more people to come here. You know, this has actually been a bit of a tough summer for the Alberni Valley because of the Highway 4 intermittent closures because of the Cameron Lake. And so to let people know that this is a great spot to come and that they're ready for visitors is something that really compelled a lot of them to vote, and I think part of the reason why they won.
What have you been up to, Justin?
You know, a bunch of things. So over the course of the last 2 days, we've been talking to people. We've been getting on the lake itself, maybe doing a little bit of tubing, maybe being tossed around a little bit by some of the locals who, you know, giving me a bit of the rough business, but it's all in good fun. A way to enjoy the lake, a way to see it. We're going to have a story on the 6 o'clock news tonight showing just how great it is and why locals have responded to this competition. But, you know, everyone's best lake is the one that's their own little slice of heaven.
Absolutely.
But for the purposes of this competition, Sproat's the best.
I can see a shot of you right now on the lake. Justin, way to go. You always have such great ways of engaging our audience and being proud of the beautiful spots in our province. Thanks so much. You have some more fun there, okay?
You too.
That's Justin McElroy joining us from Sproat Lake, which has been named BC's Best Lake in our CBC bracket. Now, Port Alberni is home to the Hupetcheseth and Sishat First Nations, and my colleague, CBC reporter Wamish Hamilton, is a member of the Hupetcheseth First Nation. He grew up in Port Alberni, and he joins me now in our studio. Hello, Wamish.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining us. It's nice to see you. You know, tell me, what is the significance of this lake for you?
For me, it's a centerpiece. It is a crown jewel in the historical territorial holdings of the Hupetcheseth First Nation. It was properly held by the Klikoot people. Hupetcheseth used to be 3 First Nations. They were the Uswinnis down by the river. There were the Klikoot, which is right beside Sproat Lake, and the Mohoth, which is a great central lake right next door to Sproat Lake. But Sproat Lake was part of the land holdings of the Klikoot people. Right beside Sproat Lake there. And that became part of Hupetcheseth proper after the amalgamation of the tribes. So again, it's a centerpiece. It's home to one of only 3 petroglyphs on Vancouver Island, 2 of which are located in Alberni, 1 of which is located at the lake. Quite a story to that petroglyph.
Yeah, so I've heard. And what should people keep in mind then of that history as they celebrate this, as they perhaps make plans to visit?
Yeah, I don't want to knock any initiative or anything like that in there, but the lake is often associated with the former Martin Morris line tankers or the water bombers, which are not in operation now. The petroglyph and Klikoot were there long before the bombers and long after. People should keep in mind the history that they don't see. I used to go to the lake and we were part of a canoe tour outfit one time that operated at the lake. Yeah. And we used to see people go to the petroglyphs to stand there and watch the bombers take off.
Oh, wow.
Without taking interest in the
Perhaps, yeah.
in the thousands of year old petroglyph behind them. But it's a hop, skip, and a jump from the main ramp to the petroglyph, where there's oodles of local Indigenous history to be found out. And as mentioned, Port Alberni is home to two First Nations, the Hoopachuset and the Sashot, and I have to be proper about that.
So a lot to keep in mind, and very good to keep that history as well front and center as we celebrate this lake. Wamish, thank you so much. Great to have you.
Thank you again for having me on.
Have a great weekend. That's my colleague Wamish Hamilton, who is a member of the Hoopachuset First Nation, and he's a reporter with Urban Nations on CBC, British Columbia. You're with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1. We are live streaming on CBC Vancouver's YouTube page, on CBC Gem, and on our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'm Michelle Eliot. Very good to have you with us. And coming up in about 3 minutes from now, Brian Minter. Minter is coming, and so is winter. And that is what Brian Minter is going to talk about, winter vegetables and what you can plant now. That's coming up after this CBC News Update with Michelle Morton.
Here are the headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. I'm Michelle Morton. Vancouver police say they're investigating the city's 11th homicide. Officers say a man died after a suspected stabbing early this morning in the Granville Entertainment District. The victim was found near Smythe Street at about 3:30 and died on the way to hospital. Police are still searching for a suspect and are asking anyone with information to come forward. TELUS, the Vancouver-based telecommunications giant, says it's slashing 6,000 jobs. It says it needs to free up cash flow to remain competitive. The company's second quarter net income fell almost 61% from the same period last year. TELUS says it will also offer early retirement and voluntary departure packages. Members of the union representing around 7,400 dock workers are voting today on a deal that could bring an end to BC's port labour dispute. The International Longshore and Warehouse Union Canada held a meeting yesterday to discuss the latest deal. Voting is scheduled to end today at 6 p.m. Pacific. And the BC Wildfire Service says there are more than 350 wildfires burning around the province, with close to a dozen new fires in the past 24 hours. One of those new fires was discovered last night near Port Alberni. It's burning on Arbutus Mountain, and more than half of the fires around BC are considered out of control. A look at the forecast. Sunny for today, highs of 23, and a few clouds for this evening with a low of 16. Tomorrow, some clouds with highs of 23 again, and cloudy in the evening, cooling down to 16. Now back to BC Today with Michelle Eliot.
Thank you very much. Are you a camper yourself, Michelle?
I do love camping, Michelle. It's been a while since I've went, so I'm craving to get out. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I just went a few months ago.
Oh, there you go.
My memory apparently is slipping away from me.
It was that memorable. Well,
it was, though. It was.
Maybe you can tell us about it another time. You go and remember where you went. As Michelle Morton.
I promise I loved every minute.
There you go.
I do remember it all.
I put you on the spot there. I put you on the spot. Michelle, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. This is BC Today here on CBC Radio 1. I did put her on the spot. Thanks to Janet, who emailed us recommending headlamps instead of flashlights. Game changer as they are hands-free. Janet, thank you very much. This is BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, live streaming as well on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. And as you know, in Metro Vancouver, we are now under stage 2 water restrictions in effect today. So you can't water your lawn, but you can still hand water plants and shrubs. And now is the time to plant winter vegetables. Brian Minter will tell us all about that, and he's taking your calls too. What is your question for Brian Minter? 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733 on your cell phone, star or pound 690. We've been asking for your photos as well of your garden or the plant that you would like to ask Brian about, and thanks very much for your emails to bctoday@cbc.ca. And master gardener and horticulturalist Brian Minter joins us now, our longtime gardening columnist on the show. He's at Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hello, Brian.
Michelle, hi. And, here we are in a drought situation.
Yes.
But, a couple of things are happening. We're noticing if you're up early in the morning, it's a chill in the air. August is here, definitely. There's a bit of a chill at nighttime. Things are getting a little bit cooler. And, it warms up during the day, but it does cool quickly. The days are getting shorter right now. I miss those 20-hour days. They're wonderful to have. But that means in terms of planting right now, we can still put, lettuce and other things in. There's varieties that we would normally keep our garden going. Most gardeners are really great. When we have a bare spot, something else goes in. But this is such a big thing. It's growing exponentially right now, are the whole situation with winter vegetables. Now, last winter was not good because of the intensity of the cold. Just before Christmas, it was really bad. We did lose a lot of our winter vegetables. And the average, just so you know, according to the Canada Research Station at Agassiz, is from ages past, 1 winter in 6 would be cold enough that you might lose your winter vegetables. But today, with our insulate materials and mulching techniques, we can get through. But hopefully, if the El Nino comes to fruition, it will be a lot milder and able to put. Now, what types of things are we talking about? And gosh, it's expanded. Lettuce seems to be the most common one that everybody wants. Rouge d'hiver is a beautiful red winter lettuce, where the density is a good one. Corn salad, probably the most popular. You keep listing that all the time. The idea is to plant it now, Michelle, and they will actually keep growing. And all through August from this point on into September is the framework to do that. Beets, winter beets can go in right now, which is good. And if you want something a little bit later in the season, all these special Lennox cabbage, for example, there's varieties of winter cauliflower, broccoli, in particular the purple sprouted broccoli, which is so delicious, really is. Those you plant now and let them get through the winter, and as winter ends at the February going into March, then you harvest these perfectly beautiful heads of just wonderful stuff to be able to enjoy when the prices are at their absolute peak. So a good time to do that. Onions, for example, the Walla Walla onions, one of the hardiest onions of all, to go in right now. Brussels sprouts should already be in if you're waiting for those. Turnips you can still make it there right now. But the idea, and kale, of course, it's becoming a favorite. So many different varieties.
It sure is.
You continue to harvest all through the winter as well. So just to let everyone know, you've got a few weeks out. We're kind of preempting this a wee bit, but over the next few weeks. But once you get into mid-August or late August, you probably want to be using transplants rather than the seed to make sure you've got adequate time to get it going.
Right.
So there is a change happening, and we want to keep ahead. So we've got fresh, veggies to harvest and enjoy over the winter time. Also, we mustn't forget that the perennial herbs are going to be with us: the parsley, the chives, oregano, marjoram. So many great herbs that we can enjoy to add to our meals all through the summertime, through the winter as well, which is a good time to get them in now too if you haven't got a lot.
Really good advice. Get those perennial herbs in. Purple winter broccoli, so beautiful. We're going to go to our first caller in just a moment. Our numbers again, if you want to get your question in to Brian Minter, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And Brian joins me from Chilliwack, and I love to see that you have. Is that some ivy behind you there, Brian?
Yeah, it is ivy. Now we have this issue about invasive ivy. This for a backdrop is artificial, so there's no invasive ivy.
There you go. No need to worry. Okay, but it does look lovely behind you there. Let's take a call now from Anne, who's joining us from Kelowna. Hi there, Anne.
Hello.
Thanks so much for calling. And tell us about your question for Brian.
Thanks. We have a small community garden plot, and at the community garden plot, we have some restrictions on not building any structures or putting up fencing, but our seeds are getting destroyed by the quail. So I'm wondering if you have some suggestions on how we can deter the quail from getting to our garden before it even gets going.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and really good point. And again, I understand in any community situation like that, they are going to have restrictions.
Right.
And probably the best thing to do is if you're not allowed to build fencing and so on, I would honestly go to a hardware store, lumber store, and get some rebar. If probably 8 or 10, depending on how wide your beds are, 8 or 10 feet long. Have them cut it for you, and just do a slight bend on it, so that in fact you're making a bit of a tunnel, and put netting over top. There's very inexpensive netting you can put. It's so easy. The plants will grow underneath it, but you just simply, when you're up there picking, harvesting vegetables, weeding, just pull it back and put it back on. But creating a simple framework like that's not a structure, it's very temporary, and I'm sure they wouldn't have any objections. But I think that would work wonders, and it works immediately.
And would that be allowed by your community garden?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. Great.
I've done it a lot in the past, Anne, and we have our local community gardens, and I see them doing the same thing for cabbage, butterfly moths, and so on. And it works. It doesn't look bad, and we got to save your veggies
from those quails. And thank you very much. Sounds like a really good solution there. So putting some netting or getting some rebar for the community garden where there are restrictions on fencing. Thanks so much for your call. And let's take another one now from Trish, who's joining us from Vancouver. Hi, Trish. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I'm wondering about. I have a pear tree and an apple tree that I have espaliered, and it's working well. And
Great.
I'm wondering about whether or not it's possible to espalier a hazelnut tree.
Yeah, it sure is. And Trish, I really appreciate that. I've in our home, I just have our fences loaded with fruit all around, and I just love what you're doing. It's so easy. And I don't necessarily get espaliered. If you can't find them, difficult, I'll just take a regular tree and okay, you're not going up, you're going sideways, and that's what I do. But they're very easy to espalier. Filberts are soft and supple, and once you start just bending those branches over, and the secret, Trish, is to put some weights on the branches, not only secure them for whatever you need to do with strings and so on to get that look that you want to have, but usually after one growing season, they'll actually maintain that shape really, really well. But no, they're soft and supple, easy to train. I think it's a brilliant idea. I think you probably want to have a lot of branches out there. Apples and pears, you don't need so many branches to get a lot of fruit. But with the filberts, you will need to have more of a thick, a layer of all those branches going up the base. And that's a brilliant idea. I think it's wonderful. But remember, with both filberts, we do need 2 different varieties for cross-pollination.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Trish. And to espalier is to sort of train some branches to grow along sideways. Is that right?
Yep, that's it. And the brilliant idea, where we don't have room to grow trees, we can now grow them and enjoy so many more fruits than we ever could before.
There you go. Trish, thank you very much for that question about trying to espalier a hazelnut tree. Sounds like she's done it already with her pear and apple trees. Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, star or pound 690. Your gardening questions for Brian Minter this half hour here on BC Today. Frank is joining us now on Main Island. Hello there, Frank.
Hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Frank.
I've harvested my rhubarb twice this year, and I'm thinking I'm going to do it again. Would that be harmful to the plant?
That's a great question, Frank. And I look at it this way. If it's got lots of vigor, and I'm really one who says get a lot of organic matter, a lot of manures around them. I also feed them with time-release fertilizer to give them more energy. But if you got a bigger plant and it still has the vigor right now, why not? Absolutely. I know you're supposed to give them a rest, but every rule has variations you can play with. But if it's me, Frank, I would definitely, if it's in pretty good shape and growing, yes, get that third harvest. Absolutely.
Well, they're going great guns now, and I'm going to do that. Okay.
Take advantage.
You and I are about the only people who like rhubarb, Frank. So good on you.
What I like is rhubarb wine.
Yes,
good
one.
Wow.
Yeah, wonderful.
Any pies in there, Frank?
Any what?
Pies?
Not too many.
Not too many. Okay.
But I've got a few blue ribbons at the fair.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Anyway, well done, Frank.
Well done. Congratulations on the blue ribbons, Frank. Enjoy the rhubarb that you harvest. Okay, take care. That's Frank joining us from Main Island. Now, we have been taking your emails as well throughout the program here for Brian, and we've been asking you for photos if you'd like to send them in to go along with your question as well. And this is to bctoday@cbc.ca. Hannah sent us an email from Nanaimo. And Hannah writes, I grew lavaterra and it was so beautiful until a few weeks ago. Oh dear, I've been watering it every day. And Hannah, you've sent us a photo as well. Really beautiful purple flowers. I mean, that looks like this was before things went awry for you. But let's ask Brian now that question about the lavaterra. Apparently not doing so well. She's been watering it every day.
Yeah, and lavaterra, it does, we came out of Europe, essentially, and Barnsley was the famous breakthrough where it kept growing, vigorously. It was a beautiful pink, and then Barnsley Baby, there's a whole series after that. But, a couple of things can happen in this hot weather, and one of the most annoying right now are the spider mites. Spider mites, I see they do get in the bottom of the leaf, and they're a sucking insect. They are really tenacious right now. Watering is good. The other thing I would take a look at is basically giving them some feed. If we're watering a lot, we're leaching all the goodness away. We need to keep feeding it. So I think one of the things we need to do is get some feed. You can do liquid 20-20-20 to give something instantly. I do like still on perennials your time to lease fertilizer, but even try fish fertilizer 0-10-10. That is really good. So check the backs of the leaves, and if it is spider mites, which I really suspect, I would really appreciate if you could mist them with water. The nemesis of spider mites is water, misting 2 or 3 times a day. That helps a lot to get rid of them and pick off the mostly badly infected leaves. But otherwise, I think a real good feeding will kind of revive them, because we do that a lot this time of year, and it's essential to get the plants in all the stress and the heat to get them back into shape.
And would you suggest the misting instead of watering every day, Brian?
And again, we have to be careful with watering. Watering less, but watering thoroughly and deeply,
right?
I think it's the way to go. We want to train our plants to go get their own moisture by going deeper. So, and it may, but we say that when it's very, very hot and very dry, depending on the location you have, things do dry out quickly. But again, perhaps less watering, but more thoroughly and deeply when you do. But misting the foliage was not a bad thing to do. Do it up until noon. Don't do it late in the day for possible disease situations. But gosh, that's both of those things plus the feeding. I'm sure we'll get your lavaterra back in shape pretty quick.
Yeah, it sure looks lovely when it's blooming well. Thank you so much for your email, Hannah, from Nanaimo about your lavaterra. Let's go back to our callers now. Marcel is joining us from North Vancouver. Hi, Marcel. Go ahead, please, for Brian Minter. Hi there, Marcel. Go ahead.
Oh, it's Martha.
Oh, pardon me, Martha. Yes.
That's okay. I just sent some photos. We have a school garden and tons of sunlight. And I've been going up there every second day, and I have volunteer parents, and we're watering and trying to keep it alive.
Nice.
But I pulled out all the garlic. We had a bounty of garlic, and I've got some bare beds, and I'm trying to figure out what to get in there to kind of have some interesting things for the kids when they come back in September.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, Martha, first of all, the school gardens are really important, but the key is most of the harvesting does take place over the summertime when everybody's not there.
Right.
Volunteers like yourself make all the difference in school gardens. So first of all, I thank you for what you're doing. That's incredibly important. We're getting to the time right now, the first week in August, where we have limited time to be able to get certain things coming for fall. It's got to be things that the young people really enjoy and so on. So a couple of options I would take a look at, because I think we're late for, novelty things like pumpkins, winter squash. If you have some bigger started ones,
yeah,
you can
I
still
put
maybe
some zucchinis and pumpkins in there earlier, and we've got little cucamelons coming, but things are looking a little sad at the moment.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? We just talked at the beginning of the program about the winter beets, the winter carrots. They're special varieties that you can actually seed right now in the garden. The winter lettuce, the corn salad in particular, which is absolutely wonderful. And I know they won't harvest this fall, but certainly in the spring, the winter onions, for example, are wonderful to grow. And if you could find some just basically the Dutch set onions left anywhere right now, they would still make it. And kale, of course, would go in. But I think with the garden, it's nice to have fresh things coming. I love what you're talking about there, Martha. And so, yeah, those would be the best ones that I could put. Any if you could find transplants of any winter vegetables or regular vegetables that still popped in, they're big enough, that'd be great. But particularly the lettuce varieties, the small beets, and any of those types of things, and carrots too, still have time to be able to make sure, because they take the cold later on, and it'd be nice to be able to have them something for the fall.
Then should I amend it? Because right now I notice it's super sandy. Like when we're watering, it's very silty and sandy soil. Do I need to amend that before I put in the beets?
Yeah, you do, absolutely. If you can get some organic matter, basically mushroom compost, sea soils, that type of thing, to build up and enrich the soil and hold that moisture, oh gosh, that would be wonderful.
Oh, fantastic. Martha, kudos to you for maintaining the school garden. I know I've taken my son to school to do the volunteer work there as well. So putting them to work, and I hope they have the kids have something fantastic to come back to in September. Thank you very much for the call from North Vancouver. Let's head to the island now. And Sylvia is on the line in Comox. Hi, Sylvia. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Brian. Really quick question. Well, I'm hoping this is a quick question. I have a large lot that is full of shade. I chase the sun, so I'm looking at a veg truck that I have in shade right now, and I'm thinking, as crazy as this might sound, of putting grow lights on there so I can put lettuce in there.
Okay.
What do you think about outdoor grow lights?
I love innovation. I love our CBC listeners because they are the innovators. Right. And, if you can get looking about the environment and so on, LED grow lights are using less energy. But why not? That's a brilliant idea. Absolutely. And I guess the only thing I have to watch is when we do get rain, that they have a cover and so on, that they're going to be able to accommodate that just in terms of safety. But and any leafy green vegetables in the shade would be absolutely perfect. So Swiss chard, lettuce, beets would be good. You can still harvest both ways. Brilliant idea. Absolutely.
Go for it, Sylvia.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my lettuce that every day.
Oh, wonderful. That's great.
If you talk thank you very much. If you talk to your lettuce with the same energy as you have just talked to us, I think it's going to do pretty well. Thank you for the call from Comox. All the best to you. Sylvia joining us. And we have another email now. Natasha sent us a photo as well of her, what looks to be rosemary. And Natasha is wondering, is it possible or smart to try growing garlic on my deck? And I guess she sent us a photo of what she has on her deck already.
You know what? In a few weeks from now, I'm going to be nagging everybody about the time to plant garlic. Okay, so and our neighbors always seem to be the first to be able to do that, and they usually start late August, early September planting garlic. So the timing is perfect, and why not? If we're going to have allegedly a milder winter this year because of this El Nino, I think we're probably a great idea. Make sure it's very well drained soil. That's the one thing. If you get a lot of heavy rains, that the water gets away quickly. But other than that, brilliant. And many people are growing garlic in containers and having great success. So wonderful idea.
Natasha, good luck to you. And right there next to your herbs. Thank you very much. I was at the farmer's market a couple of weeks ago, and boy, did the garlic look gorgeous. Pam is joining us next on the phone.
What room these tables are going to take up?
Hi, Pam. Is that you in Parksville?
Yes, it is.
Hi.
How are you?
I am well. Thanks so much.
My question is, I got 4 bags of different bulbs. I got gladiolas, I got dahlias, I got iris, and I got canna lilies. And all the gladiolas came up. I've only had 2 dahlias come up, and I've had no canna lilies and no iris. Now, I didn't plant them until May because, number one, it would seem to be really cold till the end of April, and then I went away for 2 weeks, and I came home and sort of May 9th or something, but all the gladiolas I planted at that point have come up. But I'm just wondering, will the other ones come up next year, or what's happened?
You've asked a very important question. that's the one thing with bulbs, particularly the spring bulbs. The fall bulbs are, which will be showing up shortly, by the way, really are more resilient, but the summer bulbs tend to dry up very quickly. Depending where garden places store them, they need to be in a bit of a shaded area, but dahlias in particular can get very, very dry. I mean, at the end of the season, we always try and save whatever we can, but some are just too simply dry. Gladiolas, they love the heat and they'll hang in, but the iris, I would see them, the dahlias and so on, just it's a tough one. If you have to do that again, and because of the weather, certainly understand that, but you have to keep them at a kind of a damp, humid place so that the bulbs themselves don't start to shrivel. That's really the secret. And sometimes in that situation, I would even miss the bulbs to get them to puff up again and, humidify them and hydrate them a wee bit. But I think the question was, we left it a little bit too late this year, and they simply dried. Yeah.
Okay, Pam, that is unfortunately the case for you. Maybe again next year, okay? Thanks so much for the call from Parksville. One last email here from Patricia. Patricia writes, help! My strawberry patch has developed botrytis this spring, leading to many moldy berries. How can I deal with this after the berry bearing season is over so it doesn't happen next year?
Yeah, I think that's an issue. This is where for botrytis, air and good air circulation where you have them is really important. And getting in there and picking out any leaves that are bad. And, the garden sulfur, the particular variety called Defender of sulfur is organic.
Okay.
And so there's nothing wrong. When you see that happening, botrytis is a bit of a tough one. I know but more air, more sunlight, more, circulation around them is really the key. But when you see that, getting sulfur, if you can't have sulfur, copper spray is also a good control for botrytis. That we have in the gardens, and that should happen early. As soon as you see signs of it, that it's not, clearing up and getting worse, those two items put on alternately will get that botrytis cleaned up. But for next year, if they should be growing now with all this heat, they should have lots of vigor. And if they are, just let them keep growing, and we should be fine next year again, because now we're going to use Defender or copper to control that next spring.
Patricia, thank you very much. Ways to deal with botrytis for the strawberry patch. Okay, gets those winter onions, the kale, the lettuce in. Brian, thank you so much. Great to chat with you. We'll speak soon.
Oh, wonderful, Michelle. And let's hope for some rain sometime soon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For many different reasons. Yeah.
Love to see some rain for sure. Have a great long weekend. Brian Minter, our gardening columnist here on the show. That's it for us this week. Thank you so much for all of your calls, and thanks to our team on the show, Rachel Adams, George Baker, Alan Regan, Mashid Hadi, Mel Carter, Mark Fairfield, and Greg Kisser. Thanks to David Jones, Amar Parmar, and Megan Zwick. I'm Michelle Eliot. Thank you so much for joining us, calling us, emailing your photos, listening and watching as well to BC Today. Have a wonderful BC Day weekend. We'll be back with you on Tuesday.